Timeout has evolved over the past several years. Now, back in the day, I recall sitting on the dark basement stairs when I was in trouble, and that was like when I was in a ton of trouble. Honestly, I don't even know what I could have done so wrong to deserve like basement stairs for timeout, but things are vastly different now in 2022. These days, timeout is more of like a cozy corner retreat type of place for kids to go when they need to calm their body and compose themselves and kind of get their emotions in check. But I'm wondering, do you think that there is a right way and a wrong way to do timeout for toddlers? Leave a comment down below and let me know. But of course, you know that I have my own rules of timeout, and this is what I tell my clients or anybody who really asks my opinion on doing timeout for toddlers. Rule number 1 is to reserve timeout for only dangerous situations. Everything else can be a redirect. So basically, if your kid takes a toy from another kid, redirect them to something else. However, if your child takes a toy from another kid and hits them over the head, then warrants a timeout. Rule number 2 is that you should always teach your child that anytime they hit somebody, they are going to sit in timeout. So this is something that just, it needs to be very consistent. You have to have a consistent reaction to them hitting, biting, kicking, anything. If they are being violent, they need to go in timeout. Rule number 3 is that timeout should always be structured in the same way every single time. Your child should know exactly what to expect when they go to timeout, and we will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I want to keep going with my rules that you should do during timeout. So the next thing that you need to make sure you do, rule number 4, is 1 minute per year of your child's age. So if your child is 2 years old and they're having a struggle, and they're having trouble with biting, they should only go in timeout for 2 minutes. If your child is 6 years old and they're hitting and hurting people, then they are gonna go in timeout for 6 minutes. Now, with the younger kids, if a 2-year-old doesn't understand the concept of timeout and maybe it's new to them, you might need to sit with them for the duration of that timeout. So that might mean that you're sitting there with your child for 2 minutes and you are doing timeout with them. Timeout doesn't always have to be alone. Timeout is really just a time to have a timeout from what they were previously doing so that they can think and reflect on the behavior that they have been having and think and reflect on how they should act instead. You can label it with pictures that might be calming. You can label it with pictures that might encourage your child to change their mood. You may want to label it with pictures of different emotions. Put names to the emotions that your child is feeling. If they hit somebody, did they hit because they were angry? Did they hit because they were sad? Did they hit because they were frustrated? You can name those emotions and get pictures of those and have those on the walls for their cozy corner. You can also get books and put those in the cozy corner. One of the books that I love is called The Way I Feel, and it goes through lots of different emotions, positive emotions and not so positive emotions, but it is important that your child understands that however they're feeling, it's okay to feel that way. It's just the way that they react is going to have an impact on how you react. Some other things that you can put in your cozy corner are pillows, and maybe some fidgets or some calm jars. Any of those things you can definitely put in your cozy corner for your child so that when they need to calm down, it is a great place for them to go. Now, I know this video is all about how you should and shouldn't do time out with your child, but this cozy corner can also be a place where you say to your child, if you notice that they're just having a hard time, like, hey Billy, I noticed you're having a hard time right now. If you feel like going to your cozy corner, it's a nice place to calm your body down. So don't be afraid to use it during times where it's not just timeout, because it can be a place where they're learning, like, I can go here to regulate my emotions and not just because I did something I shouldn't have done. But I also wanted to mention that if you're putting pictures on the wall and you know that your child is upset about something, and maybe, you know, maybe they're going to this cozy corner because they hit something or somebody, you probably want to put the clear contact paper over the pictures that you have on the wall, because if you have an aggressive child, chances are they're going to try to possibly be destructive and rip things off the wall. So if you have contact paper over pictures, that would be a good place to put that. Now, if you're making this cozy corner in your home and you have, you know, 1, 2, or 3 kids, maybe more, maybe less, you can take pictures of your child making different faces for different emotions and put those on the wall so that they can see you, and you should do it as like a family project where everybody in the family is showing these emotions and taking pictures of them. I think it would be really fun if you had like a Polaroid, or even just printing these pictures off at Walgreens, like you could do that. But I think it would be really fun and encouraging for your child to see everyone in the family making these faces, so they're really seeing different emotions coming from different people, and that it's okay to feel these things. I think back in the day, it was just like widely taught that we just like, you shake it off, you don't show your emotions, you don't feel sad, you don't feel mad, like you just take a deep breath and you keep going. And that is just not the vibe these days. Like today, it's like, feel your emotions, and it's okay to feel those things, and you know, feel it and then move on, and not just like take a deep breath and cover it up and move on with your day. It's very much so a positive realm of different emotions are like, they're widely more accepted, and being able to let your child know that it's okay to feel what they're feeling and then they move on. I just think it's a great, I'm going off on a tangent. Let's move on. So rule number 6 of timeout is to talk about what happened as soon as timeout is over. If you need to set the timer for 2 or 3 minutes, however old your child is and however many minutes they have, set the timer. When the timer goes off, you say, why were you in timeout? And if they're not ready to talk about it, just say, let's sit here until you're ready to talk about it. When they talk about it and when they agree that what they did was wrong or incorrect or whatever you want to say, or not so great of a choice, you can say good choice, bad choice, you can say right choice, wrong choice, however you want to word it. You need to make sure your child knows you are a good kid, but you didn't make the right choice. So once you talk about it and it's done, it's done. You don't go back, you don't dwell on it, you don't talk about it later in the day, you don't talk about it days down the road. It's done. Move on with the day. Now, the 7th rule of timeout is that you need to consider outside circumstances. Is your child tired? Are they hungry? What is going on in their world? Maybe your child is speech delayed and maybe they have a hard time communicating how they're feeling, or maybe they're frustrated and they have a hard time explaining that. And whether they're speech delayed or not, toddlers don't necessarily know to say, I'm frustrated, or I don't like this situation, or please can you share that toy with me? But maybe they did say, please can you share that toy with me? And then the other child says no, and then the child that ends up in timeout ends up getting pissed off, really, and you know, reacts with hitting or kicking or biting, or you know, one of those physical reactions, and because they don't have the skill of talking through their problem yet. And it's not uncommon for these reactions to happen. So don't ever think like, why is my kid acting like this? Why can't they just be normal? This is normal. So just give yourself some grace and give your kid some grace. Now, of course, I'm going to touch on sleep. Stress levels rise when children are sleep deprived and when they are exhausted and overtired. If your child is struggling to sleep, I want you to go down in the description box and I want you to download my toddler sleep guide. This is going to walk you through how to positively enforce good sleep skills with your child. Now, of course, there are some don'ts when it comes to time out with your child. Rule number 1, when it comes to things you do not do when you need to work on time out or reactive behaviors with your child, do not give your child an emotional response. If you need to take a minute to yourself and walk away, maybe you need time out, but seriously, take a minute, take a breath, and do not respond emotionally, because that is when kids think, Mommy's really upset right now, Daddy's really upset right now, I must be a bad kid. Something like that could occur in your child's mind, and the older your child gets, the more they catch on to your reactions. I mean, even when they're younger, they know, they catch on. But as they get older, they're going to communicate with you, you just think I'm a bad kid. So if you're responding emotionally, you gotta take a minute. You gotta just like, you can be firm with your kid, but you can also be loving. You can tell them, I love you so much, and I'm sorry that this frustrated you so much to get to the point of hurting somebody, but this is not okay. now you need to sit in timeout. Let's go to your cozy corner. So that, like, hand in hand, numbers 1 and 2, because rule number 2 is to know when to walk away. You have to know when you need to take a minute. So we just covered all of that. I'm gonna jump into number 3. Never ever shame your child. Now, the language you use is everything. And of course, like, all of these go together. They're all connected. But when you have the ability to disconnect your emotions from any situation, like, you just have to have this mindset that, like, toddlerhood is freaking hard, okay? It's hard. And your child, they really want this independence, but they don't have the skills. They just don't have them yet. So you need to be able to not shame your child, yet still teach them a lesson. So you can't say, "You're naughty. I can't believe you did that." That is not an okay thing to say. The way that you speak to your child becomes their inner voice. So if you say, "You're naughty, you're terrible, I can't believe you did this, that was awful," like, you know what I'm saying. If you're talking to your child like that, they're going to tell themselves, "I'm naughty, I'm terrible, I'm awful, nobody loves me." They're going to have terrible self-esteem. So I know we all lose our shit once in a while, and it happens, but we have to really be conscious of when we need to walk away and take a break. So never shame your child. It's just sad. So moving on to number 4, never use timeout as an empty threat. So you cannot say, "If you keep doing this, I'm gonna put you in timeout. If you keep doing that, I'm gonna put you in timeout. I'm gonna put you in timeout. I'm gonna put you in timeout." Like, you need to have set parameters. This is when you get timeout. This is when you get redirected. And it is fine for your child to know. They should know. This is what earns you a timeout. This is what, like, this is what earns you not being able to play with this toy anymore, because sometimes that's all it takes, is taking a toy away, moving on to the next thing, okay? So if you continue giving your child an empty threat of, "You're gonna go in timeout, you're gonna go in timeout," and you never put them in timeout, they're never gonna take you seriously, they're never gonna believe you, and as they get older, they're not gonna respect you. They're gonna walk all over you, and they're gonna do whatever the heck they want because you just keep giving them empty threats. So you have to be consistent with your expectations of their behavior. Rule number 5 is, do not try to rationalize with your child or teach them a lesson when they are upset. Their brain literally is not going to work. You cannot rationalize with a toddler. I mean, like, sometimes you can't even rationalize with them when they're happy. So when they're upset, they're literally, like, not even able to listen to you. So don't even try. When they're super upset, you need to just let them regulate, let them calm down. That's why we're in the cozy corner. That's why we're just relaxing and taking a break. It doesn't need to be a negative thing. It just needs to be, we need time out, we need time away, we need a break. Let's go take a break. And you can set the timer, and when they're calm, then you can talk about it. Don't try to rationalize with a child when they're really upset, because it's not gonna get them anywhere. And you can probably relate it to yourself. When you're really upset and someone's like, "Oh honey, it's not that big of a deal." It is a freaking big deal when you're upset. So let them be upset, let them calm down, and when they're ready, then you talk about it. And then rule number 6 is, do not assume that timeout doesn't work just because your toddler gets up every couple seconds the first few times that you try timeout. You have to be consistent. And yes, you have to be consistent with putting your kid in timeout. And it could be sad to have to put your kid in timeout, but they're going to learn very quickly. If they react in a dangerous way to any situation, they are going to be put in timeout. And that is that. You need to follow through and continue being consistent with your reaction to their reaction to something they didn't like. Just because they don't like something doesn't mean they can go on hitting and kicking and screaming. They have to learn. And the more you're consistent, the more they're gonna learn. If you throw in the towel and say, "Well, that didn't work," and then you just let your kid have that behavior, they're gonna continue to have that behavior. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Now, remember, sleep has a direct impact on your child's mood and the way they react to situations. So if your toddler is struggling with sleep, get my toddler sleep guide down below or set up a one-on-one consultation. Watch this video right here for more toddler sleep strategies. I have a whole playlist of toddler sleep videos, so check those out and Keep blooming. Mwah.